time for another break from fixing this bike. We're getting there though. Okay, so we've been talking about how God is the creator, he's the king, and we broke the world and the sin problem. And last week we talked about how people were choosing to sin and God said, nope, can't sin, judged them, saved Noah because he was righteous, he was trying not to sin. And this week we're going to look at another big time that people decided to sin. So, a few years later, so after Noah and his sons and their wives get off the ark, he says to them, go out, multiply, and spread out, fill the whole earth. Well, they didn't do that. They multiplied, meaning they had kids, and their kids had kids, but they all stayed together. Or at least one group of them stayed together, and they got a little prideful, full of themselves. And they said, we're so powerful, we're so cool, we're gonna build a tower that reaches all the way to heaven to show how awesome we are. Because we're awesome and we can do it. So they all got together and they were gonna build this big tower. And the nation of Babylon, it's called the Tower of Babel. It was the nation of Babylon, and we know that they were a pretty proud nation. We actually are going to hear a lot about Babylon later in the story because God uses them to punish some sin. Anyway, so they build this big tower. They're starting to build this big tower, and God's like, hey, you didn't listen. I told you, spread out, cover the earth, have kids, go everywhere, and you're just staying here and you're building a tower to glorify yourself when you should be glorifying me. And this is not okay. So, he confuses their languages. The Bible says he confused their languages. So we're assuming that before then they all spoke the same language. They're all the grandkids and great-grandkids and great-great-grandkids of Noah, so when they were on the ark, they all spoke the same language. So here they are, all speaking the same language, and it says God confused their languages. Whether or not that means nobody could understand anybody, or maybe you could only understand like your family, because God is relational. So will God take away the ability for you to speak with your kids, or for you to speak with your husband, or your mom or dad? I personally don't think so. So I'm guessing the family groups could still speak to each other, but they couldn't speak to the other family groups. And when you can't speak to each other, when you can't communicate, that's really hard. I lived in Germany for 2 years, and I learned a little bit of German, and it was hard to try to talk to people. I'd go to the store, and I'd be like, hey, I need this. And the lady would be like, I don't know what you're saying. And she didn't speak English, and I didn't speak German, and we'd kind of gesture and point at things and laugh a lot at ourselves as we were trying. So I can imagine trying to build a huge tower together. They must have just given up. And they headed their own way. And they finally obeyed God, and they spread out. And they got in those groups, their family groups, and they spread out. And whether they got with their family and they figured out a language together, or they got with their family because they could speak the same language, because God allowed that to happen, we don't know. But they spread out, and they finally obeyed. And this story just shows that cycle. We've seen it already with Adam and Eve, and we've seen it with Noah, and now we see it with this story, that cycle of God gives a command, and we don't follow it. Don't eat from the tree. Oh, let's eat from the tree. Spread out over the whole world. Oh, let's stay right here and build a tower. And we see that pattern over and over and over and over again. People trying to build a tower to glorify themselves instead of God. And we see that one again and again and again too. Doing what we want instead of what God wants. And that's so sad. So what does this story have to do with Jesus? Well, we're currently scattered all around the world. People are all around the world, and there are thousands of languages spoken all around the world. And this is what one of the things I love. There's so many things I love about God. God is amazing. God is awesome. But God tells us that after this world is done, because there'll be a time that this world is done, and he's like, okay, Sin's not in charge anymore, and he's going to destroy this sinful world, and he's going to make us a brand new one that is perfect. He's going to remake it perfect again for us to live in. I can't wait. And he tells us that when that happens, all the people who believe in him from all the nations all around the world, with all their different languages, they're going to come together. We're going to come back together. And we're going to worship God together in our own languages. People from every nation and tongue, every language, we're going to come together. And God's going to bring us back together, worshiping him the way we were made to. And it's going to be awesome. And I can't wait to hear it. Oh, it's going to be great. Oh, I can't wait till God fixes everything and makes everything perfect again. But I don't think I'm going to get this bike perfect again. I'll get it working. But I can't get it perfect again, but I'm going to try my best. Okay, I'm going to keep working. See you guys next week.